If you provide TikTok services or are interested in providing TikTok services, today we have a really great interview. My friend Timothy was able to grow his TikTok agency to over $300,000 a month and grow personally over 3 million followers on TikTok at just 23 years old. We're going to talk about his journey and how he managed to land world class clients like Duolingo, Shopify, and even Gymshark. It's a great interview, so make sure to give it a watch. And at the end of the video, you can check out Timothy's social medias, which I've linked in the description. I hope you enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome to the channel. Today we have Timothy on to talk about his journey growing his agency from, well, conception to a very successful 30+ person TikTok agency. Timothy, welcome to the channel.
Thank you, Michael. I'm excited to have this convo.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first question I ask everybody is quite a broad one, and that is, who are you and what do you do?
I do TikTok. That's what I tell people for simplicity's sake, but that is a hybrid between a TikTok influencer and running a TikTok agency, helping e-commerce brands to create content, work with TikTok influencers, and do TikTok ads.
And how long ago did you get into TikTok? 'Cause I remember you were like one of the first entrepreneur guys that was on the platform.
Yeah, that's how we met actually through TikTok. But it was 2019, so time flies, but it's been 5 years already.
And when you started TikTok, was that like the first business endeavor, or was that like second or third at that point?
Yeah, second, third, maybe even more. I was drop shipping. And after that, I had an Instagram agency. And after I blew up with my personal brand, I decided to shift all my focus to TikTok.
It's funny because I did another interview a week ago, and we had the same conversation where like drop shipping is like the hazing ritual to get into entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly. And I think that because dropshipping is quite broad with the amount of skill sets that you need to become successful, you naturally get to understand what you thrive in. And for me, I was actually the only way that I was making money as a dropshipper was through my Instagram page because I knew how to grow my Instagram theme page, I guess. And so I transitioned to doing that as a service. It was more lucrative. And simultaneously, I ran TikTok. But yeah, I think dropshipping is great in the sense that you have to learn all of these various skills, and then you can, double down on what you enjoy and what you're the best at.
yeah, I do agree with that. I mean, web design, you have sourcing products, you have marketing, you have customer support, even payment processing. You have to figure that out initially. So you have this TikTok brand, you're growing it, you get some traction. How did the agency come into play?
So it's a funny story. One of my videos went mega viral when I talked about, it was a video about Shopify, and it went quite viral, like 10 million views in 24 hours or so. And a couple of days later, I received an email from Shopify themselves asking to get on a call with me. And remember, I was a dropshipper, so Shopify was my everything back then. But I receive an email, I get on the call, why not? And on the call there's Toby, the CEO and founder of Shopify, and he tells me that yeah, a few days ago their website crashed and they couldn't figure out why it crashed nor where the traffic was coming from. This is like 2019. And he told me that one of his employees, showed him my video, and he couldn't believe that it was from TikTok. So he decided to hop on a call. He ultimately hired me to kind of take over the TikTok profile, and so I was doing that content. I was doing influencer relations and their ads, and because I did a good job with that, then they introduced us to Duolingo and Gymshark and a lot of big companies. Um, so we got the ball going from Shopify.
That's a very bizarre first client. I mean, that's normally
Yeah.
the end game, not the beginning. So that's very cool. Now, when you were working with Shopify, was it like were you like were you is it how did that turn into like an agency? Because imagine if Shopify is more of like a project where it's quite custom to them. At what point did this become like a standardized agency offering, which you were able to actually grow and build a team around?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So my relation with them was more so one of a consultant, I would say. And I was the very first person that ever worked for TikTok at the company. So you could say it was done for you. I did everything, but eventually as they referred me to someone like Gymshark, they also wanted, I had to split my attention, and I understood that there was a business opportunity to, as opposed to being a consultant or a freelancer, I could, yeah, just build a service and build a company from that. So I had to make the choice of whether I, yeah, wanted to stay dedicated to those people or go bigger. I'm rather ambitious, so I took the latter. And the way that it turned into an offer, I think this is still, it's a continuous work in progress, but I think about 2 years ago when Hormozy released $100 million offers, I really understood that concept, and it's been one of the pivotal moments in our agency actually, since we've had like that one flagship service that we're always selling. And it allows you to productize your deliverables, build a team around it, so on and so forth. So yeah, Hormozy definitely played a big role into having a good offer.
Well, awesome. And now that you have this offer, now how did you then get clients? Did you continue to get clients from TikTok? Did you do cold email? Obviously my channel talks a lot about outreach, so I'd love to talk about client acquisition here. So how did you go from, hey, I have a personal brand, I got a few mega clients who made introductions to, okay, now I have a standardized offer, I can sell this to a lot of people. What did client acquisition look like at that pivot?
Yeah, so different things walked at different stages of our growth. I think when we were 0 to 50K a month, a lot of it was Upwork actually.
Nice.
And we cracked cold emails quite early compared to now. It's a very known thing, but we were quite early to it. So cracking cold emails did really good for us, and it's brought us from like 50 to maybe 250 a month. And and yeah, now we're testing with ads, which is looking very promising. But cold emails has done, I mean, yeah, it's done wonders for us.
Love to hear it. Obviously, cold email channel here. So cold email case studies are my favorite. Now, I'm curious with cold email, do you have any key takeaways for someone getting into it that you wish you had known when you had started?
Yeah, I think that you need to do the basics really well. I see wait, because we've hired so many consultants trying to help us improve our response rate and things of that nature. But if you don't have good deliverability, I mean, you just need to look at like the big core things and make sure that you do those right, even at scale. And then and I think also just keeping the North Star, because what I was saying with those consultants is that they would help us to increase our response rate, but at the end of the day, our number of meetings booked did not increase, it was actually decreased. So while he improved one KPI, the end result was worse. And so at the end of the day, the only thing I care about is the end result, right? Not really how they got to that point. Um, so I think that you have to worry about deliverability a lot. It's probably like one of the most important thing. I would just push social proof. And I think most importantly, this actually goes against what you preach, I believe, but it's volume. We're successful with emails because we send more than most people. And that's probably by an order of magnitude of like 3x, maybe 5x more than someone that does cold email. Just for reference, like we send 20,000 emails a day. That's a day, so that's about 80,000 a week, and we book anywhere from like 100 to 120 meetings per week with cold emails.
That's awesome. And I think two things to note there is one, you mentioned the ultimate North Star being revenue. I see a lot of people where they read some 2018 HubSpot blog posts on open rates and they fixate over it. Where it's funny how like we were auditing a client's campaigns last week. They have one campaign that takes 200 people to get a lead and one that takes 1,500 people to get a lead. The one that took 1,500 people to get a lead has got them two seven-figure deals, right? If you look at KPIs, you would say that's not successful, but again, it's revenue. And second is volume. We don't do quite that much volume, but I believe there's a lot of right answers to cold email. But I do think volume is incredibly important because I see a lot of people where they're worried about running through their total addressable market and they don't want to get a bad name or something. And what happens is they do these baby-sized outreach campaigns of like 500 prospects, and they do make progress, but the same progress you'll make in a week, they make in a year. So I do love to hear it. And 100 calls a week, that's obviously incredible. So you're doing this something very right at that volume. I mean, to manage deliverability of that scale, it's a hard job.
Yeah, there's so many ways around it, particularly when it comes to recycling leads, because that's a problem we always face. But you can contact from different emails. The body of your email is different. So yeah, there are ways around it, and deliverability. I think the advantage of cold email outreach is that it's so cheap compared, like if you look at your CPA compared to running Facebook ads, for instance, it's negligible. So that means you could basically rebuy domains and rebuy inboxes every other month, and that will allow you to have like fresh deliverability. So yeah, I think like once you understand the system, it's really what I really like about cold email is that it's a linear sort of growth or process. The more emails you send, you can very predictably tell how many meetings you're going to book, and you can just increase the volume and grow continuously that way. As opposed to like organic reach, for instance, or building a YouTube channel, which is very exponential. So yeah, it's a linear system, and I think it's the way that we run it is much simpler than a lot of the hacks and things with Airtable that I see sometimes on YouTube. Um, I think you do that, but like we do it for I think an industry that is much more niche. For us, we're rather broad, just ecom brands. So we just focus on making sure we send enough emails to book, you know, the meetings that we need.
And one thing you mentioned there is you're only targeting ecom brands right now. What led to you choosing just ecom? Because obviously, for example, first client Shopify, software, Gymshark, ecom, and Duolingo. I guess you call it software app, whatever you want to call it. So how did you end up finding ecom to be where you want to spend your time and acquisition?
Because we have the most case studies in there, and in that niche, I think it's also a market that's more ready to take risk, so it's easier to close. But it's yeah, ultimately it's mostly a matter of we get better results for ecom, and it's much easier to generate a return on investment for those clients than for a SaaS. So,
Okay. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And question for you, within these e-commerce brands you're working with, have you found that TikTok for them is it a revenue channel? Is it an attention channel? Like how do you quantify being successful on TikTok?
yeah, that's a great question. Ultimately, they all want to see revenue, so that's what we focus on. But we do have to set expectations as to the fact we're not going to be rich and famous in 30 days. And unlike Facebook ads, it's not a linear system where you put in $1 and you can expect to make $2 back day of. So it's a long-term play, but at the end of the day, we have a really extensive track record of showing decreased CPA or all that KPIs improving from Meta to TikTok. Because I think once you crack it, it's much cheaper to market on TikTok. So
And what about for B2B services? Like for example, do you get some of your own clients for TikTok or is it mainly for attention and social proof?
yeah, I think my content is doesn't really talk about business. Also, I do tech review, so I don't get that much business. It's an incredible tool for social proof. I have had leads in the past. I have like a different acquisition system for my personal brand because I run cold email campaigns, just to get brand deals and things of that nature. But the correlation with the agency is not so obvious.
Got it. That makes sense. So it's like two separate businesses, really.
Almost. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, moving on a bit from acquisition. Now, I know you have a team right now. You said is about 30 people.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm curious, what has been your process to be able to be free and travel? Because one thing that I know a lot of people watching this channel see is, they're interested in travel because they found me on Instagram. Maybe they saw I was traveling, and a lot of questions like, well, how do you do that and run a business? Because I think people underplay how challenging that is, and then they get two, three clients and they say this is a full-time job already. So do you have any tips or advice for building that team to allow you to have freedom and actually live a life? Because I know you do quite a lot of cool things, so would love to hear some of your insights.
Well, actually, I just came back from one of our team retreats, and I was telling a lot of my employees that want to live that life that it's actually not that expensive, and with the salaries that they're making, they could travel full time. So I think that's one thing to note. But I think your question is more so about time management. And what I found, you could speak to this probably better than me, but it's important that you don't travel more than once a week. Like, don't change country more than once a week, because otherwise you spend more time commuting than the actual place. You're behind on work because you're commuting so much. So you're always playing catch up, and to grow the business, you need to innovate and build, not just, catch up to your emails and Slack messages. So I think that traveling in like I would say actually this summer has been quite productive for me, although I've been constantly on the move. And it's because I don't know, I just walk as if as per the usual, and then I just go out and enjoy where I am on at nighttime or throughout the weekend. Do you want me to talk more about like team management?
Yeah, that would be great. Also, one point of emphasis on team management is you mentioned 120 sales calls a week. I'm sure there's a sales team there. I don't think you're taking 400 calls a month. So I'd love to hear about some team management, how you do manage, and then
Yeah.
also especially on the sales side.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think the moment that you're able to externalize sales, which is no walk in the park, it took me like 1 year from the moment I decided I kind of bought a training specifically to that, to the moment I was fully out and I had a manager that I was, yeah, completely done by someone in my team. It took me a full year of training people, hiring the right people, so on and so forth. So no walk in the park, but it's the most liberating step, I think, in the agency journey, because at first the agency depends on you to bring the money in. And in order to do that, you need to be the one on calls, like 6, 7 calls a day, which is very draining. And on top of that, you have all of the other work to do, right? Like managing all the fulfillment teams and doing all the follow-ups and things of that nature. So yeah, like externalizing sales is not easy, but once you do it, now I take like 2, 3 calls a day max. Sometimes even less, and the money keeps coming in. So yeah. And it's funny because the dynamics of managing a sales team versus a fulfillment team is drastically different. One is more on the offense and the other one defense. So it's different types of leadership. And I had to relearn everything about hiring and management when when I was trying to build the sales team. So
That's, it's interesting you mentioned it took a year because I've heard that from quite a few people who built sales teams. I mean, um, I haven't built out my sales team yet. It's probably my next step in business. I've been doing a lot of research, and it seems like that's a much more difficult leg of business to establish. So it's very impressive that you've managed to do that. And I'm curious, how many people are in your sales team to handle that volume of calls?
I have one seller, 4 closers, and our sales manager. So
Okay.
that's, sorry, 6.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Now, Timothy, I have one more question for you today, and that is, what is the goal of this company? You've built to a team of 30 people. It is a legitimate company. I like to clarify how impressive it is because a lot of people in agency space, I think, are really glorified freelancers where you have a legit company. You have a sales leader, you have a sales team, fulfillment team, you have time freedom. Is the goal to build this to 100 people? Is it to completely remove yourself from it? Is it to branch out into software? Where do you see this going?
Yeah, that's a great question. That for now, my vision is to make sure that I build to sell. So just like you said, I think I want to legitimize the business in terms of the equity I can get behind it. And these are things such as making sure the business doesn't depend on you, that your products or services are repeatable, and different acquisition channels, that you don't have like a monopoly or concentration of big clients that take the entirety of your business. So many things that go into it, but we're building towards that. And ultimately, the way I see it right now is I would probably sell to start something bigger. But honestly, I don't know, like 6 months from now, I might have a different view on this. But yeah, I definitely try to move my pieces in a way that if I was to want to sell, I could and at a good price.
Awesome. Well, that's a great answer. Timothy, thank you so much for being on. As a final piece here, where would you like people to go to learn more about you? I can have your TikTok, but where else should I link in the description?
If you're business orientated, it's probably going to be LinkedIn. If you're more on the entertaining side, TikTok, and personal life is more Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Of course, pleasure.